There have been hundreds of film movements throughout the years that have not only changed the way people make films, but also the people that consume films. And I believe that right now, today, we are in the largest film movement that's ever happened. Now, before I get into it, because I know I'm getting a little pushback from this, let's look at a little tiny bit of history, so you have an understanding of film movements and how they've done this. So when Hollywood was in its infancy, we had this new technology. We could take photographs in series and put them together, and it showed movement. I didn't have sound, but that new technology was like, how do we use this? And the first few films were simple things like train comes into the station and people are jumping out of their seats in fear because they have never seen this. They weren't film literate yet. And Hollywood was in its infancy. It didn't know how to use this technology in a way to make it art yet. And over time, they figured out some new techniques, and they learned how to tell stories with these moving images. And then more technology came in to add sound, and we have, and then we added distribution to it, theatrical distribution, and we have the movies. Now, this is what people consider classic movies, filmmaking, and yeah, that's the classic picture of what a movie is. It comes out in a theater, it was shot on film, and that's a movie. That's filmmaking. Yet, like when we compared it to something else, like here's the movies, this was the high tier, and like when I was growing up, television was this low tier, like, oh, it's a lesser thing. But I think just like it took a while for movies to mature, I think television had to mature also. And as it matured, it got better and better at telling stories in a different format. It wasn't like a 2-hour constraint. It was over a longer series. So things like Breaking Bad, to me, that's filmmaking. That's telling a story with pictures and sound. I have no doubt that that is considered filmmaking, even though it's supposed to be for television and it's not released in the theater. That's still a type of filmmaking. And I don't think that it's like this anymore. I think they're both at the top of their game in their different aspects of filmmaking. But what about today? What is this film movement that I'm talking about? Well, film movements have come about in many ways from history. A lot of them have been, after wars, like different political things, war and political boundaries, policies that people didn't agree with. There's been a lot of things that have caused these fringe film movements. And some of them have been geographic, like there's a group of filmmakers that aren't in Hollywood, they're in Japan or they're in China. They have their own little community, they talk about film and they create a different style of film, and that becomes a film movement. But a lot of times those film movements, like especially the Soviet montage film movement, the Soviets were studying how different pieces of film cut together to tell a different story. It's known as montage, and that has affected every film ever since. It has affected all of filmmaking. And it's affected the people that watch films also. So now the people that watch films, we can have, from some of the French movements, we've had jump cuts that were intentional to add a punch of a hit in there emotionally. Now it doesn't have the same effect that it used to, because now we, as the viewers, have seen more films and are more used to seeing different things. We have matured as film viewers. Now, I think other things can affect that also. I think video games have affected the speed at which people can bring in more information. I think that's one reason you can have more chaos in a film today, because the younger people have been inundated with lots of input, and they're just more used to it. So if a younger person goes back and watches an older black and white film, it can feel like the pacing is off and too slow, because they are used to a different level of stimulus than we were in the past. And that is, you know, basically because of the way things are cut in a quicker and quicker pace. And us older folks will have a little bit more catching up to do when it comes to film. I think a lot of us can keep up with it, but some of us will just be like, well, that is not the way you do it, because in the day it was done like this, and whatever you grew up with becomes like, this is the standard that we should base everything in the future on. And I don't believe that. I think things change all the time, and we're in the midst of that right now. So what is this movement? It's a couple of pieces. Distribution. We can distribute worldwide. Anyone can do it. Cameras have become better, cheaper, lighter. So basically, anyone can make films now. It doesn't mean they're going to be good films, but anyone has the capacity to do that. And even in the past, when you'd have a cheap film, they were still fairly expensive. Like, not everyone had access or had the money to pay for film and processing and to do all the steps to make a film. But today, a couple of grand or whatever you have in your pocket, you can use your phone to shoot a film. And this, to me, the combination of accessible equipment and accessible distribution has changed everything. So now, like in the past, we would have the younger people coming in and creating films that some of them weren't classically trained, and they're doing and trying new things. Well, right now, the entire globe has the capacity to make films. Now, most of them aren't going to be that good. There's just a lot that goes into creating good films. But there are people that are becoming really good at telling a story on these really tight budgets, on these really tight turnarounds. One person can go out and shoot for a day, edit it together, and create a film. Now, Casey Neistat refers to his daily vlog as making a film every day, and I'm completely on board with that. I believe that is what he's doing. There's a lot of travel vloggers out there that are telling a complete story using pictures and sound. And yes, it's a lower tier thing down here. But just think about how much we are in the infancy of this online video movement. If you think about how long it took Hollywood to get good at becoming that top tier thing, and how long did it take television to get to that top tier? Each time it's a little bit easier because we can build on knowledge that we've learned from the previous one. But online video has some distinct and unique aspects, just like television has a unique aspect of filmmaking versus a theatrical 2-hour movie. So these online videos are different in many ways. And I'm not going to say that it is a lower tier thing. It's still in that flux position. There's just so much change going on because there's so many people trying so many different things to have their own unique way of shooting and communicating with their audiences. So what are some of the things, the aspects of this new movement as I see it right now? One, people often will communicate right with their audience. They'll look right at the camera, they'll talk to their audiences, and a lot of people will have a more niche content that's made more for a more specific person. It doesn't have to be for everyone in the world. It can be made for somebody a little more looking for something specifically for them. Some of the other things is we have really small budgets. The timeline, because we have to keep cranking out more and more content, that timeline is really short. We don't have 1,000 people working for 2 years to make a film. We have one dude shooting some video and editing it all night and posting it sometimes daily. That is a different reality. And I'm not going to say that it takes less talent to produce at a high level in this arena. It's just simply a different type of filmmaking. And I think as time goes on, we will see more and more respect for the people that are at the top of this game. And there'll be a lot of techniques that come out of YouTube filmmaking, from travel vloggers and from just vloggers and from people that are making skits online. There's so many different techniques to connect with your audience and to bring them back to watch your next episode and to connect with them emotionally, given a hook. But the people that are successful at this are telling a great story. They're using images, they're using sound, they're making a film on a really tight budget, both with money and time. This is a film movement. It is going to change not only the way we make films in the future, it will also change the way people consume films. Because now, because of this distribution and the great number of people creating content, the people that are watching it aren't going to accept just they're not going to sit down for 2 hours and just expect to watch one thing. If what they're watching isn't feeding them personally, isn't the thing that's right for them in that moment, at their fingertips, they click of the mouse, touching their phone, they can change to millions of other pieces of content. So I don't think it's that we are growing a group of all the young kids. They don't have any ability to, like, their attention spans are nothing. I don't believe it's that. I think that people just have options and they're no longer willing to listen to a piece of content or watch a piece of content if it's not serving them well, because there's thousands of other things that can do better. That means that we as content creators need to step up our games, need to speak to a more specific audience, or we need to be just really good at what we do in order to be successful filmmakers in this arena, in this film movement. That's what I think. I would love to hear what you guys think, because I know some of you are like, oh, hells no, that is not filmmaking. No, I don't. No. I believe it is. I think if you don't see that this is a huge piece in filmmaking history, I invite you to wait 20 years and then watch this video, and then we'll finish this discussion. That's all I have for you all today. I love you all, and I hope to see you in the comments. This should be interesting. Bye.